everyone, and welcome to this ISP educational talk on the impact of well-being on emotional and academic development of children and teenagers. My name is Laura Alexander, and I am the head of psychology at Lady Elizabeth School. I'm also a mum of two. Before I moved to Spain, I was working in the UK, delivering workshops for parents and staff, and also young people and teenagers to do with mental health and relationships and sex education and well-being. And we have two panelists with us here today. We have Edgar Bresso, first of all, who is a doctor in psychology and professor at the University of Castellón, and Joanna Habiak, who's a coach and entrepreneur. So welcome to Edgar and Joanna. Edgar, if you could just give us a bit more background on you, first of all, please.
Hi, hello, everyone. As you already know, I am PhD in psychology. I am associate professor at the University of Castellón. But lately, nowadays, I am working more, focusing more in educational settings. I am still working at the university, but I am also the director of one master on emotional intelligence, and we are working in schools, also in English schools, in some English schools, to introduce emotional intelligence by means of some interventions in order to enhance the learning processes of students and the well-being of teachers. It was because in 2010, I've been in the US working with Peter Salovey in Yale University, and also with Mark Brackett, and we developed there, or I learned there, how to implement in educational settings emotional intelligence. So I am happy to be here to share with me my knowledge and also to listen what you want to share with us.
Thank you so much, Edgar. And Joanna, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joanna Habiak. I'm Polish. I'm an economist. I'm a businesswoman, and above all, I'm a mom. I'm a mom of a teenager, and thanks to him, I became a coach during the pandemic time. And after that, I wrote my first book titled Educate Your Child for Happiness and Abundance, Secrets of a Mom Coach. And now my main goal is just to help fathers and kids to encourage their well-being.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Joanna. So this is going to be quite an interactive session today. So when you feel like contributing something to some of the activities or discussions, if you could please use the chat function, which you will find just at the top here, I think. It might be slightly different display for you, but if you need to ask a question, just raise a hand. You'll see that function on there as well, that option for you. So also, if you haven't got a piece of paper and a pen with you, it will be beneficial too. So if you can grab that now, that would be great. That's for one of the activities later on. But like I said, you participate as much as you like in the discussions and the activities. So the first thing we're going to move to is a very, very simple question, just to get an understanding from each of our participants, for those who want to add it in the chat. What is well-being? So what is it to you? How would you define it? I'm just going to give you a little bit of think time before you add to the chat there. And any of our panelists, if you want to add to it as well, that's absolutely fine. What you consider well-being to be.
Laura, for me, well-being is just a happiness, just to feel happy and enjoy your life.
Yeah.
Okay.
So feeling happy with oneself and others. Edgar?
Yeah, from my point of view, well-being is it sounds nice. Well, sounds nice. So I agree with Johanna. It could be something like feeling well, feeling happy. Yeah. But there are some important issues that I think is important to discuss, because well-being is like a box, big box with many things inside. And all of the different components of well-being are important. And the result, the score, the final score of well-being is based on those different components, but it's not an average. So it's not something like, if I feel very well in one part of my life and I feel extremely bad in another part, the average could be good, so I feel well. No, it doesn't work. That's the problem. It's not actually a problem. It's something interesting. So the game is trying to get the perfect formula for each one. So probably for you, Laura, for you, Joanna, that you have different formulas, different equation of well-being, and the result could be great. And that's the reason why people sometimes don't understand why you don't feel well, because they analyze from their point of view your life, and they say, okay, your life is great, so how you don't feel well if your average is okay? So because you put the importance in some specific parts of well-being, and that is the work for us as teachers when we teach in our classrooms. We have to think about what is important for each of my students in order to estimate and put the proper effort in each part of their well-being. That's my point.
Yeah, lovely. I think that's really important. We've got some really nice contributions from our participants. So things like quality of life, happy and secure and confident, being happy when you wake up, feeling safe, feeling fulfilled. They're all similar, but I think what's really important here is it's coming across. It's not one specific thing, like you said. It's lots of different components, lots of different things that contribute to our well-being, and also it's something that isn't necessarily temporary. It's something that we kind of strive to be permanent, so we can have bad days and we can have good days, but our well-being is something really that should be kind of present all the time, ideally. Okay, thank you for that. We'll move on to the next one. So what does well-being look like? So we have some similarities in the chat about what well-being is. It is a little bit different for people, but the significant thing is that it's important for everyone. Okay, so it's really, really important for everyone. Having a lack of well-being, of course, can be very detrimental to your health. And we're lucky enough, most people here today, I think, are lucky enough not to have had to deal with things like social media when they were growing up, which is, of course, a big factor in terms of well-being and feeling insecure. And someone mentioned about feeling secure and confident, and I think that's really relevant for social media and the impact that has had. Of course, COVID is part of it as well, but those are just two components, social media and COVID, that we can think about there as part of our well-being. But depending on what you experience in life, of course, it can be different for you as well. So you've all interpreted your different types of well-being and what you consider that to be. Edgar just spoke about the different components before. We have these ones here suggested by a source from the UK government: emotional well-being, behavioural well-being, social well-being, school-based well-being. And although, Edgar, you mentioned a little bit about the components before, is there anything else there that you think you would like to add to that?
So I think there are some different ways to define the different components of well-being, and there is something that I think it's important to take into account, that is the relevance of knowing how do you feel. So sometimes we think about emotional well-being of people, and we have the idea of someone who is emotionally happy or quiet. Or I am thinking about a classroom. One student happy or quiet or relaxed is okay. That's the perfect well-being score that I want. I want something like 5 in my activation and my well-being. But the problem is that sometimes students are not connected with their state. It sounds strange, but it's true. It happens also in our case. Sometimes we are not feeling our feelings. We are not able to be connected with our feelings. And in Spanish, it's very easy to test it, because when you ask someone, how do you feel? Every single person in the world says, well. So everyone is well all the time. No one, that's stupid. So when you ask people, everyone say, well. Well means that you are not connected with your feelings. Because if you are connected with our real feeling in that moment, you never say well. You can say excited, you would say frustrated, you would say exhausted, you would say I don't know, because well is not a feeling. Well is just some way to say I am not extremely bad, I am not extremely good. And we only are connected with feelings extremely high or extremely low. And that's the main problem. We don't know, watching to the screen, watching to the slide, we are not able to manage our emotions if we are not able to perceive properly our emotions. So that's the best and the first step from our point of view. From my point of view is giving resources to the students, to the families, to being able to know all the time, during all the day, how they feel. That could be one of the basic clues for manage those sort of well-being.
Yeah, that's interesting. And really, it's about that awareness, isn't it? It's about your awareness of it as well. So, I mean, Edgar, can you tell us, what your thoughts are for parents? Like, what can we do to encourage positive well-being for our children?
Yeah, there are a basic theory. It was made by Bandura. Bandura, he has died. He died in last year, I think, or 2 years ago. Poor man. And he told us, he learned us that people learn mainly by 4 ways. The first and the best way to learn is by mastery experiences. So you learn, for instance, you learn how to play tennis, playing tennis. And it's very, very extremely important to put experiences of success. So this is one of the first for me, the first step for parents and teachers is give to your children success. Don't give them fails. Don't put the effort in the bad way, but put effort in the good way. So success, mastery experiences is the best way to learn. But the second, and extremely important, is vicarious learning. So
vicarious,
yeah,
vicarious.
Students learn by the experience of other people. For instance, I can learn how to play tennis watching Rafa Nadal play tennis. I watch some other persons playing tennis, and I can learn how to play tennis. And it's very important, the relevance of the model. So if the model is important, if he or she is important for me, I will learn quicker, easier than if the model is not important for me. For instance, Rafa Nadal is not a good model for me because Rafa Nadal is physically and mentally extremely different to me. But if my friend or my parents or my brother do something and I see that he can do it, probably I will take the chance to do it. So it's very important to put a proper model, and the best and the most direct model for children are parents. So it's very important to be a good model for our child.
Absolutely. Thank you, Edgar. And the illustration that you can see on the slide there, about the mother asking, how do you get your child to read books, as she's on her phone and her child's on their phone. And then the other mother is just looking at her, wondering, well, modeling, basically. I model it. Okay. My child watches that behavior, that vicarious learning, and takes those positive characteristics and behaviors on. Okay, great. Thank you, Edgar. So we're going to move on now to looking at some ways of how we can actually encourage well-being. We're going to focus on the idea of control. So you'll see on the screen there are three circles here. First one saying that no control, second some control, and the third one most control. And on the side of the circles, we have some behaviors or some things that are factors in our lives, either daily or not so frequent things, but all things that affect us in some way. There are some question mark boxes as well, because obviously everyone is different and people have different things going on in their lives, which are very specific to them. So, you can change this a little bit based on your own child. So what we're going to do, we're going to focus on this activity, and this is where you can use your pen and paper, if you like, to have a quick activity thinking about how we control the things in our lives from the perspective of the child. So, or children, if you want to do it for more than one child. So for example, I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. And when I think about their level of control in their life, it's not that great for them. I pretty much have to control most of it. So I try and control what they eat. I try and control how they sleep, but they pretty much make that mind up for themselves. But things like spending time with family and the activities that they do, generally, I'm in control with my husband. So it's difficult for them to have a level of control, and you can understand how at times, if they want to eat a biscuit instead of an apple, that might lead to a meltdown because they're not getting to do what they want more than anything. So it is a frustration. So that's just an example from my part. But what it does do is it highlights that idea of empathy as well. So we've got control and empathy. And the fact that I may think it's a bit ridiculous that they don't understand that I want them to eat an apple instead of a biscuit. The truth is, to them, it's important. And to them, it's a lack of control. It's a lack of doing what they want to do. So part of our understanding of well-being has to be what we do control, how we perhaps control others and the impact that has. But importantly, really being able to empathize with individuals and having that empathy for people so that we can consider things from their perspective. Now, Joanna's got a 16-year-old son, so she's going to give us an example from his perspective, how she might fill out this activity.
Thanks, Laura. For example, this morning we have been talking about exams with my son, And he was trying to explain me that it's impossible to control the score he got in the exam, and it's not the truth, because it's some control part as he need to put from his part to just learn for the exam. And of course, after that, a part is under control of the teacher, but positively sure that it's some controlled area. Apart from that, for example, the not control is if he is tall or not, if the weather is nice or not. But the most control is the mood he wake up every day, even if it's raining, or just improve his sport condition, physical condition. Even if he's not tall, he could have a very good body if he wants.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. Right, and there's some good examples there. So thanks for that, Joanna, about the question mark boxes, which is basically for you as parents. You're the experts on your children, you know them well enough. So there are certain things that are specific to them. So Joanna talked about the sports side of things, or exams. So exams is another good one to focus on, depending on the age of your child. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to just think about some of the behaviors that are there listed, and other behaviors that, or things that happen in your child's life that you could associate with no control, or some control, or most control. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do that activity, hopefully on pen and paper if you can, but you're welcome to do it just in your head if you like. It's the process of it really that's the most important thing. So if you have any questions along the way, I can see the chat here as well. So if you put any questions in the chat, I will try and address those as we do it. It's a quick activity. So like I said, only 2 minutes, and then we're just going to share some of the observations. So off you go, 2 minutes. Okay, just 30 more seconds. Okay, don't worry if you haven't finished it completely. It's just really to get an idea of having some time to focus on the idea of control and putting ourselves in the shoes of our kids. If anybody would like to share something about that activity, an observation, something perhaps, you may have found surprising, something that it made you think about that maybe you've not thought about before, or you've just simply been reminded about, that would be great if we could put some things in the chat and just and go from there and have a talk about your input in this. Or again, the panelists, if you want to put anything in the chat or use your mic that you found, that would be great. Yeah, that's really nice. So Christina's mentioning about the impact of exercise and the exercise that affects their well-being. That's really important, that idea of physical well-being. In fact, Sophia mentioned that before when we were talking about components, but sorry, Sophia, I didn't have a chance to say that. But yeah, they link very well together, that component of physical well-being, the impact of exercise. And again, I think from a perspective of control, we try and get our kids to do lots of physical activity, but Eva has made a point that the older that the kids get, the less control we tend to have. So that's certainly important for sports as well. We can't really make them do those sports, even though we know they're good for well-being, but we do have to think about things from their perspective. So it's really about that balance, isn't it? Any other observations before we move on from that? Yeah, Sophia, you basically called into my mind there. My 3-year-old wants constant activity and we're tired. So it's good for him, but it's a challenge for us, is what she's saying in the chat. Yeah, that is pretty much my everyday challenge at the moment. I think the constant activity, the constant need for stimulation from young children, obviously, when you have to put so much energy into it. And again, going back to Edgar's mention of modeling, sometimes it's quite exhausting to have to feel that pressure of constantly being a role model to your children, because we're all human as well, and we all have bad days, but it's really just about being aware of that. And I guess it's important then to get some time away from children at times, so that you can just, show all your bad habits and go on your phone and watch YouTube or something without them knowing. But it is quite exhausting, I understand that. And then Stephanie is saying, I'm the mother of 4 from 16 to 27, both boys and girls. Okay, and it's not easy to have control on what they want to do or behave. It's certainly, I think, that's really difficult. I mean, I keep being told that I'm in the easy stage of being a parent at the moment, which is a bit terrifying. But yeah, I think certainly the older they get, the more difficult it is to have that level of control. And obviously that then has a knock-on effect for your own well-being, because maybe instead of lacking sleep because the kids are getting up in the night, you're lacking sleep because you're worrying about what's going on with your child, because they can decide whether to have good communication with you or not. So it's a constant cycle of worry. But in terms of well-being, it really is just about what we were talking about before, that awareness of things and having empathy for each other, and also your kids having empathy for you as well. It's not a bad thing for children to recognize that you were also just grown-ups that were once children, and that there is a child there in all of us as well. And then we have from Stephanie again, so the best way is to try to act good and the rest follows. Again, yeah, that goes back to the modeling. Very good point. Thank you, Stephanie. Thanks for your contributions, everyone. I'm going to move on to Joanna again to get her to talk to us about the concept of well-being that she's had a lot of focus on and worked with quite a lot. So Joanna, could you introduce us please to Ikigai? Off you go.
Ikigai is like a Japanese secret of how to encourage our well-being, positive well-being, of course. So, in fact, it's an ancient Japanese philosophy that has enveloped the way Japanese people live. It's a concept of finding your purpose in life, as Iki in Japanese means life, and Gai describes the value or worth. So, your Ikigai is your bliss or your purpose in life. It's something what brings you joy and inspires you to get out of the bed every day. And why do I think that Ikigai is important? As you, Laura, and Edgar told before, here the important part has modeling. So I think that model people with positive results is very important. And in this case, Okinawa is the Japanese island which has the highest proportion of people over 100 years old in the world. And Ikigai plays a very important role in Okinawan culture. So Ikigai helps them to live a longer and a happier life. But apart from that, knowing your Ikigai can help you design your ideal work lifestyle, create a strong social connections at work, for example, create a healthy work-life balance, or just enjoy your work. So how to discover your Ikigai? Each Ikigai should be compounded by 4 overlapping qualities, and inside you will, as the graph shows, you will find your Ikigai. So Ikigai is this hobby or craft maybe you have or you will find in the future. It should be something that you extremely love. You love, it means that you can do it hours and hours without getting tired or bored. You should be emotionally connected with. Also, you should be good at this hobby or craft. It means that maybe people compliment you about your hobby, or just you feel intuitive about it, or just simply you want to be the best or just an expert. Also, it should be something you can be paid for. It's a very important part of our Ikigai. So you need to check if your hobby or craft has a high demand in the marketplace, if it will be desirable in the future, it's very important. And also if it's solving one of these problems, social, economical one, or just environmental one. And finally, it should be something that the world needs. So you need to check if someone else made a career out of this hobby or craft. Maybe people around you request you about your services or the thing you do or make. And it should have a healthy level of competition in the market. And once you find your ikigai, it's time for implementation. But the very important thing is, even after putting it into the practice, you will realize that it's not your real purpose or bliss. Try again, because rectify is for wise people. You can make mistakes. We are allowed to make mistakes, but the important thing is just to learn from our mistakes and rectify.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. I love the idea of bringing that concern of what the world needs as well. That's really nice to be thinking of things, that are happening in your life, things that are happening sort of in your circle, and then things that are happening elsewhere that you may not have direct contact with, but to feel like you're part of what is actually happening in the world is, I think, really important. And that's a really nice message for children as well, I think. To know that they can make a difference, even if it's just a little difference, we can make that difference. And also, I think the focus on making mistakes, the idea of it being a process, you can't just find your ikigai, you can't just have great well-being straight away without some sort of, like you say, trial and error. It's got to be a trial and error kind of thing, and you'll get there in the end, and then you'll have dips along the way, and some days it'll be better than others, but it's about striving for it being as present as possible on a daily basis, if we can. So yeah, that's really interesting. Joanna, can you talk a little bit about how maybe you can associate the idea of language, how language contributes positively to our well-being in terms of that concept of ikigai?
Oh, yes, of course. In fact, I have a very, one of my favorite sentences is the sentence of Desmond Tutu, is one of my mentors. And he says that language is very powerful. Language doesn't just describe reality, but language creates the reality it describes. It means that the language we use every day defines us as a people and builds our reality. The way we speak to others or to ourselves is just a reflection of our values, our attitude, and above all, how we deal with our circumstances. We need to know that positive language brings out the best in each person, and from there comes everything that happens in our life. So language, in fact, could transform people's life. It could solve conflicts in our environment by improving the way we communicate to others or to ourselves, increase our self-esteem, motivate, or just create our dreams after to turn them into reality, and consequently give us a happier life. We should also know that the first communication we have with ourselves, so we use when we use negative words or thoughts with ourselves, we are giving to our brain messages of destruction. So it's very, very, really important what we thought or what we say.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, and it ties in so well with what Edgar was saying about the modeling. If we're modeling negative language, it's probably going to get picked up on, and it's probably going to be mirrored. So yeah, we have to be so careful with that. So we're going to move on to a quick activity, which is going to seem a little bit bizarre at first. I'm going to read out a sentence to you, and I just want you to take that sentence in. So the sentence is: a dolphin playing the drums on the top of Mount Everest. And I just want you to think about that for a minute. I'm hoping that now you all have a very similar image in your head of a dolphin playing the drums on the top of Mount Everest. Hopefully you do. It's really just to focus on and highlight the idea of how powerful language is. Okay, so it does shape the way we think. From just one sentence like that, anyone who's delivering that sentence, if that's the only thing that you're focusing on at that point, that image is created in your mind, and it's shaping the way you think. Okay, whatever you were thinking about before, you suddenly got transported to Mount Everest with a very bizarre, talented dolphin musician. So it's really, really important to remember how much of an impact the language we speak does shape the way we think and the way that others speak as well. So the other way that they think as well. Sorry. Okay, let's move on to the idea of growth mindset. Now, a few of you, if you were in any of the other ISP educational talks, you might have done a bit on growth mindset already. So apologies if you have, but there's nothing wrong with going over that again. If you're not sure what growth mindset is, what I'm going to do is just play you a short video just to introduce you to the concept of growth mindset. It's only a couple of minutes, and then we'll look again at how this ties in with language. Okay. Here we go. Sorry about that.
Have you ever heard of Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck? Her research on the idea of mindset suggests that there is every reason to believe that we can be great, maybe even the best, at anything with dedicated practice. But in order to get there, we need what she calls a growth mindset, which simply means believing that our abilities, including intelligence, are largely a result of time, effort, and practice. A growth mindset stands in contrast to a fixed mindset, which limits us by making us believe that we are either born with certain abilities or not. For example, our fixed mindsets might tell us that we're an English person, but not a math person. Sound familiar? Having the right mindset is important because it affects behaviors which greatly influence whether or not you will succeed at something. For example, if you have growth mindset, you're more likely to embrace challenges, appreciate feedback, and when failures happen, you don't allow it to define you, and instead, you use it to help guide how you can improve. Those who have a fixed mindset, on the other hand, shy away from challenges, don't implement feedback, and in fact, often feel defensive about the criticism. And when failures happen, it's devastating and feels like an attack on one's worth. You can see that there is a self-fulfilling prophecy here. If you believe that your abilities can improve, you'll engage in behaviors which make it so. If you believe your abilities are more or less immutable, you don't try to improve, and so you don't. If you recognize yourself as having a fixed mindset about things, well, you know you can change that. Practice having a growth mindset, and the sky's the limit.
Okay, going back to our presentation. Oh, here we go. There we are. Okay, so just to give you a bit more understanding about the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset for anyone that hasn't come across it before, there are some examples on the screen right now. So a fixed mindset would be, I'll never be as smart as that person, whereas a positive mindset, a growth mindset, everyone is talented in many ways. Something like, this is too hard, as a fixed mindset would turn into, with more practice, it will be easier, as a growth mindset. And the general idea is that, you know, you're going to get there in the end. Everything is a process. And with children and teenagers, obviously, you know, they're learning stuff every day. It's quite exhausting, and it's easy to forget how tiring that actually is, to come to school every day and constantly be learning. It's fantastic. It's really fantastic. But there are times when, just like us, they have days where they're tired, or they're just having a day where they're feeling a bit more negative. less engaged. And this is where growth mindset really comes into its own. And we try and encourage that idea of, yes, you may not be there right now, but you will be there at some point with, for example, practice or just accepting your mistakes. And it goes back to that idea of trial and error that Joanna talked about before with Ikigai. So, right, just to have a look at, let me just move to the next slide. Here we go. We're going to focus a bit more now on, again, some interactive participation here. So what fixed mindset phrase are you guilty of saying to others, or that you have heard others saying? So I'm going to give an example myself. It was interesting in that video, they mentioned the idea of, I'm not a math person, I'm more about words, I'm better at English than I am maths. And I've heard this again and again, actually, at parents' evenings. Completely well intended, not meant to be any sort of negative impact at all. But if I'm giving feedback to a student and the parents, and it's that they're just not quite getting something, or they're not progressing as quickly, the parents maybe jump in and they say, oh yeah, we don't really do maths, we're not really a numbers family. And it's completely, like I said, well intended. But when you think about fixed mindset and growth mindset, we've got to remember so much about what we're modeling there. We're kind of saying to our children then, well, yeah, don't worry about it, because we're not like that either. So you can see the sort of impact that it has. So we need to think about the phrasing. Joanna, have you got any examples of maybe a phrase that you've said or you've heard other people saying to each other?
Yeah, usually the common one is, I'm not as intelligent as you, or I'm not as brave as you. Everyone used to use these sentences in our daily life. And to others, it's something like, you are completely disaster. We really used to use this awful sentence with our kids or with our couples maybe, or friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a classic one. And Edgar, what about you? Do you have any contribution on those?
It is very interesting, the relationship between words and behaviors, because sometimes we have no difficulties to understand that our behaviors are reflected by our words. It means if I am very, very frustrated for something, it's very easy to understand that I can say bad things to my colleagues, because people understand, no, he feels very bad. So it's very easy to understand that they say that. So that direction is very simple, and people understand that your feeling is the antecedent of your word. But it's very difficult to understand the other way, and it works as well. So your words also are related with your feelings. So, for example, there is one example from my own life. And it was something like 1 month ago. My wife decided to give up smoking. Good news. Good news. She decided, no, that's the last time that this is the last cigarette. I am not going to smoke anymore. And I said, okay, good, very good. I support your decision. And 2 weeks later, she smoked again. And my words in that moment, my sentence wasn't, I already knew that. I told you. I know you are not strong enough to give up smoking. My sentence was, okay, 2 weeks without smoking. So you week, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So you have two good things. Two good things. The first one is you save your health a little bit, just 2 weeks, and you demonstrated yourself that you can do it. So sometimes we make too pressure by words on ourselves. Sometimes you are too strict with ourselves. And that is not a good way to control our well-being and to increase our well-being. The best way is being not too much optimistic, realistic. We have to be realistic. I have to say, okay, it's not nice. It's not a good issue. You are smoking again, but we have to focus on our strength. Yes. If you focus in your strength, probably you will be able to get the chance of doing again.
Yeah.
As you see, I am not a very good English speaker. I speak so.
You're very good.
But I remember the first time I went out of Spain. It was in 2000. I went to which country? Belgium. I went to Belgium. It was my first international experience, and my English was something like, "Yeah, how are you? I want this. I want that." So I was extremely bad. I am not good at all on languages. And today, 21, 22 years after that, I think in the last time I thought about that, I think I've been in 56 countries around the world. So probably if my first experience was extremely bad, if I put too effort or too power thinking about I cannot, I am stupid, I am not able to communicate properly, I am not able to do it, nobody understands me. Think about, I was in Belgium, in Ghent. People there speak Dutch. So I have a very I don't know, something like the very basic level of English, and people there spoke Dutch. So it was very difficult for me to interact with people. But I try to get the good points. I went to the places and I try to get the good points. And I speak with me in a good way, in a realistic way. I know, I told you, I am not good in English. I know my level, but I am realistic, but I think I am able to communicate properly. And thanks to this way of thinking, thanks to this way of speaking with myself, I visited 56 countries. But the pandemic situation, imagine. Imagine.
That's great. So, that's really, really good. Well done. I mean, it's great to just adopt that approach to it, isn't it? Because you're right, we do give ourselves a really hard time. When anyone asks me, oh, do you speak Spanish? I used to go, oh, no, I'm terrible. I'm terrible. Which, in my head I am. But when I adopt a growth mindset, I always say, well, I don't yet. But I will get.
Sorry, now I am not going to conferences, but some time ago I went to different conferences around the world, and for me it was frustrating watching Spanish speakers in conferences, in talks, in lectures, saying, first of all, I am sorry, I am Spanish, I don't speak English very well. So why you are saying just at the beginning that you are a bad performer? We are the audience. We have to think and to estimate if you are good or bad. We don't need someone to say you are bad, because that is the worst sentence you can say at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand why people are too stupid. so don't worry about your feedback. The feedback is done by the audience, not by yourself. You have to work in your strength, on your strength, not on your weakness.
Yeah.
So it's extremely important.
Exactly. And it's so true. It's so true. Thank you. So has anybody got anyone in the chat that has written anything? Christina's put her one is, I can't draw well. I've said that as well. I can't draw well. And then, sorry, let me just go down a little bit. I can't draw and I'm no good at math. That's basically me as well, Christina. But to be a growth mindset, not fixed, you can say, I can't draw well yet, or I've made a lot of progress in my drawing. I'm no good at math yet, or I've instead would be maybe, I do struggle a bit with maths, but, I keep trying and I do get better each time. So it's about focusing on the positive and focusing as well on the progress, which is so important for students. I'm always encouraging that with my psychology students, because they're so self-critical. If they get something back and it's a lower mark that they think, but it's progress from their last mark, I always say we need to focus on the progress, not the final grade. Where have you come from? Where are you at now? And if you make that same progress again, then there's nothing to worry about. It's just about that hard work and that commitment. So they really are. When they get that, they're so much better. When they suddenly are okay with making mistakes, then they kind of relax a bit and they worry less about the grade and they focus on the knowledge and understanding of the subject, which sounds ridiculous because of course that's what they should do, but because of the way education works, they do tend to feel the need to focus on a grade. But, I always say to them, if at the end of your 2 years of studying psychology, you go from an A grade to a C grade, to me, that's more impressive than going from a B grade to an A grade, much more impressive. And we have Sophia. I don't understand why people are too stupid. Happens to us all. Just laughing at Eka's chat before. Yeah, good point. Okay, great. So let's move on a little bit more. I'm just going to show you a couple of examples of how at my school at Lady Elizabeth we're trying to encourage growth mindset. So the ISP schools, of course, all different. They're all doing their own thing. But certainly growth mindset is a very popular thing to be focusing on and encouraging with our students. So you'll see in the top right corner, I recently did a big display with the students all about growth mindset, but focusing only on the word yet. So Carol Dweck, who is the sort of inventor of the growth mindset, she does a whole TED talk on the power of yet. So I can't speak Spanish yet. I can't draw caterpillars yet. So it's all about knowing that you're going to get there in the end through hard work and commitment. And we had a lovely illustration that one of the girls did that was sort of the winner of the competition, where she created, you'll see the black and white one there on the left, she created an illustration of someone being at the not yet all the way to I did it, and lots of struggles along the way. So she had the obstacles of the weather and trying to get away from something with a parachute and falling into the sea and trying to climb a mountain. But eventually she got there, and it was through those challenges and through those mistakes that helped her get there in the end. And then the next one that I'd like to show you is how we're trying to develop different learning spaces to encourage students to be learning maybe in a slightly different environment. So here, just this year, we opened the garden at Lady Elizabeth School, which is also a library. It's also used as a classroom, but it's also used for different things that we offer. I do some parental workshops where parents come in and we focus on things like how the teenage brain works and how we can encourage growth mindset and the challenges they face. So just focusing on those different ways of approaching the learning and getting them out of a classroom space and just trying different things with them, which has really worked well, and they really appreciate that. And then the last thing I have just in my classroom, I have this on my classroom wall: mistakes are proof that you are trying. Sorry, one interruption in the whole thing is pretty good. Mistakes are proof that you are trying. It's just so important. It's a thing that I go on and on about. The more that they can be okay with making mistakes, the better. You know, if you're in a classroom situation and the students are, you ask a question and they don't put their hands up and they went, oh no, I'm just not sure if it's right. I don't know if what I'm saying is the right thing. And I say, well, let's try it. If it's not the right thing, it's probably still relevant. It's still going to help everyone else in the classroom learn. And the more that we say something and it's incorrect, the more people are encouraged to just do it anyway. No one ever laughs at someone for getting something incorrect in my lessons. It's just, you know, but it is something that takes a while to be okay with. So before we move on to any questions, I'm just a bit aware of time. I think we've got just a couple more minutes left. If there's anything to do with the idea of making mistakes or growth mindset that you want to add into there, Joanna, if not, we'll just go straight to questions and from the participants, see if they would like to have any specific questions to the panelists. Okay, all right, so we'll go over to focusing on then the idea of communication is everything. So I'm just going to round up today with saying, you know, communication is so important, to work together, to be aware of what it is that each of our roles and responsibility, and to have empathy for that and understanding. And that's something we really strive for at ISP, to make that communication strong. So I would like to thank you for your engagement and your contribution today. It's been really interesting to hear those people that have participated and contributed their own thoughts, and to our panelists. We have got a little bit of time here. I know some people have to go, they've said on the chat, but if anyone would like to stick around and ask a few questions to our panel, that's absolutely fine. I'll just keep checking the chat and see if that's the case. So please do ask a question if you would like to, again, on the chat function, or even put your mic on, and you can ask a question by raising a hand using the control there for you. Okay, we're getting a lot of thank yous. That's very nice. Thanks, everyone. Okay, great. Thank you. That's really kind. Thank you. Yeah, it's really nice to have some time to focus on it. That's half the battle. A lot of the stuff that, you know, we talk about, people are aware of already. It's simply finding the time to address it. I think that's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah. Sophia, thank you. Yeah, for that. My son often repeats words that upset him in class. Yeah, great for teaching staff. Very useful for teaching staff as well. Really, really important. We are, you know, can be incredibly influential. So it's really important that. Okay, thanks. That's great feedback. Okay, so if anyone has a particular question, please ask it. Otherwise, I will round up because we are just over by a couple of minutes. So again, thank you so much for your engagement and your contribution, and a big thank you to Edgar and Joanna for your contributions and taking the time to be involved in this talk. It's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay, bye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.